All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. It was just about a week or so ago that the president did an about-face, and, well, not an about-face, but all of a sudden told us that from here on in, he will work every day. The goal of his presidency for the remaining time he has left is not to get everybody employed, not to find everybody a job, not to fix this debacle of Obamacare and make sure people have good insurance at an affordable price. No, he's going to fix income inequality. He pulled that out of his hat, that old theme, that old populist theme. And joining us now to talk about this is a man who has just written a piece about it at National Review, and it is the editor of, he is the editor of National Review, of course, Rich Lowry. Hello, Rich.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to talk to you again. Okay, so Obama gives this speech at the Center for American Progress, and class warfare, divide. But as you say in here, I believe that if he had his druthers, we'd all make the same. We'd all have the same cars. We'd all live in the same houses because that would be best for everybody. And he just doesn't like it when people are too well off, does he?
Yeah, I mean, that was the undertone of the speech. He, of course, wouldn't ever say that explicitly, but basically having a lot of rich people offend his sense of aesthetics and his sense of justice. And he went out of his way to be very tendentious in trying to kind of justify the concern about the fact of inequality. So he suggested as though it's been established that inequality hurts the economy when it hasn't at all. And in fact, there are a few studies that show the rise in income inequality is correlated with a rise in economic growth. So I think about a third of the speech was fine, and any of us could have given it and agreed with it about how important mobility is to America and what we need to do to try to enhance it in this country. But the policy prescriptions and just the banging on about income inequality, the other two-thirds were way off base.
And as you say, he cited a study, and I can't recall offhand how he presented it, but he famously says during interviews or speeches when he's talking about policy, and it's not just me who feels that way. Everybody on both sides, the economists from both sides of the aisle agree. So I don't know if he went that way or just cited this one study.
Yeah,
but as you point out, citing one study, what does that mean?
Yeah, he literally said one study showed, and one study did show that income inequality is associated with more fragile economies, but it was a study of developing economies more than developed economies like ours. And there, as I said, there are other studies pointing the other way. So, and I thought, not to get in the weeds here, but one irony was he gives a speech at this progressive think tank, the Center for American Progress, basically suggesting, again, that it's been established that income inequality is bad for the economy. And then a few days later, the head of that think tank is going to go to work in the White House, John Podesta, writes an op-ed about how his Center for American Progress is starting this new outfit to study income inequality because we don't know what its effects are. So it's just another case. The president could easily say, look, this is a trend where we have more inequality, although that's a little bit in dispute, but that's more a matter of consensus, and say, look, it's worrisome and it bears watching. But, of course, that would not create an urgent sense of action, so he doesn't say that.
Right. And of course, the statistics show that this income inequality, as defined by the president, has increased during the 5 years of Barack Obama's presidency.
Yeah, well, it's really increased just across the decades, no matter who has been president.
But he's done nothing to reverse it.
Correct. Well, it just speaks to the fact that it's a broad trend, and it's a trend we've seen around the world in developed economies, no matter whether they have more robust unions or pro-union rules than we do. It's a factor that's just held across all economies, which goes to show it has a lot to do with globalization, a lot to do with technology and automation. And even if the president desperately wants to reverse it, and even if he had a magic wand, there'd be no way to reverse it really except for confiscatory taxation, which of course a lot of his supporters, they won't say it out loud, but they would be perfectly happy with.
Absolutely. And finally in your piece, you talk about how if Mark Zuckerberg suddenly lost all his money, it wouldn't benefit anybody. And of course, the people like the Zuckerbergs of the world and other people who are wealthy and rich, they provide jobs and economic opportunity for right down the chain.
Yeah, well, he makes money. Maybe Facebook isn't a great example because I think it's such a time waster. I'm not a big Facebook fan, but a lot of
what I say? What I say?
Zuckerberg.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Founder of Facebook, but a lot of people find it very useful. So he's provided a value to the economy, and that's why he makes a fortune. It's very rare when someone makes a fortune out of something that provides no value to anyone. And this is how the economy works. And the left complains about CEO pay. For all I know, a lot of CEOs are overpaid. But if that's true, companies will eventually figure that out, and they'll pay them less.
And just like the Seattle Mariners, I can't understand how on earth they paid Cano $225 million, but they did. And you know what? God bless them. And right on down the line, Obama has no problem with his Hollywood friends making $20 million a movie.
That's another great point. Is if you really believe that income inequality in and of itself is bad for our society,
then everybody has to be included.
Yeah, don't leave the White House and go get rich, which is what they all do.
Yep. Hey, Rich, great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye. That's Rich Lowry, editor of National Review, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we come back, we're going to talk to the communications director for the RNC, our friend Sean Spicer, and got lots of questions for him. Oh, yeah. Gordon Chang, talk about what's going on with North Korea and China. A little confrontation between China and the U.S. We'll talk about it. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.